Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Writers Chat. And this is where we all like to gather together and we talk about all things writing for writers and by writers. And we're really, really glad to see so many of you here with us today or watching the replay. And we are ecstatic to hear today's topic. My name is Jim Wise. I'm one of the hosts. I'm joined by most of the whole crew today. We have Johnny on the road today, so she can't be with us, but we have Randy and Norma and Melissa and Jan, and we're going to turn it over. Jan's going to lead our topic today, tell us what we're talking about, and introduce our special guest. So take it away, Jan.
Good morning. It's nice to see everybody and hope you enjoy today's talk. Tom's great. Tom was raised in a small town in southeast Kansas. He began writing poetry at age 14, but has written nonfiction most of his adult life. He self-published his first book, Behind the Scenes of the Bus Ministry, in 1974, and wrote articles for denominational and business magazines from 1975 through 1995. He co-wrote The Great Adventure for Barber Publishing Company in 2009. Tom traditionally published his first novel, Night of the Cossack, in April 2011 at age 69. Tom has been a public speaker for over 40 years and is currently readership building coach working one-on-one with authors and writers in all aspects of the publishing arena, social media, and readership building. Tom has been a self-employed entrepreneur since 1973 and is married to Barbara. They have 6 children and 14 grandchildren. And Barbara's really sweet. And she puts up with his antics too. So thank you, Tom, for coming and helping us all out with the writer's business side.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I would take some of that sunshine that's behind you. So is that really your backyard?
Not at the moment, but yes, it is my backyard. And it is sunny and gorgeous, except it's really cold for us. We have a wind chill of 36 this morning.
Well, unfortunately, Barbara and I didn't get to take our snowbird trip this year because of COVID. And so I'm not used to the cold weather that I'm in now, although I've lived in the Midwest many years, but I spent 2 years in Minnesota. And I call all those states up there weird names, but there's North Desnota, South Desnota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Ice, Michigan. So anyway, I stay away from those. Okay, we're going to talk about authors and business. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I work with authors every day who have expectations that are not realistic. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why we as authors, and I was guilty of the same thing when I published my first book. I was thrilled that I had sold out completely, all 150 copies. And but the reason that I did that book was because I was holding seminars in churches on the bus ministry. Funny enough, when I published with Barber, I thought I need to have all my books in my bookcase. And so I realized that somewhere along the way, I lost a copy, the only copy I had of Behind the Scenes of the Bus Ministry. So my publisher knew I wanted one. He went online and found it for me. It cost him $10. I only sold it for $1.50. But when I got it and opened it up, it was signed. And so now I've got a complete set. So it's fun. But anyway, expectations. The thing that I think I want to start with is to say, if God called you to write a book, what makes you think it would be any different than if he called you to be a missionary? And I'm saying that it's not. Now, if you've ever talked to a missionary It may be from the time that they actually received their calling till the time they actually got to the mission field and saw the first fruit of their labor, that it might be 15, 16, 17 years. They had to go out, a lot of them, and get their own support. They had to go to school. And if you go onto a website for, it used to be New Tribes Missions, and I can't think of the name of it now, but they send you to school, but it's only after you graduate that you even find out if you made the missionary cut. Now that, that is tough. So to think that God gave me a book to write, and that's all I have to do is write it and get it on Amazon, and then I'm done with it, and he's going to do all the rest of it. I'm afraid it's not realistic. That's not the way he goes. I spent 20 years in financial planning, and there's one thing that I learned about people. If there's no investment, there's no value. And so if God gave you a book to write, and he gave you the book in your mind, and he put it on Amazon, and he did all the work for you, it would mean nothing to you because you really didn't invest that much. Now, when you invest like a missionary does, then you're in it for the long haul, good, bad, up, down. Um, you're just in it. You never get out of it. And so one of the things that I notice about authors, two things. Number one, instant gratification is their worst enemy. Number two, uh, unreal expectations creates resentment and bitterness. And something happens sometimes from the first day I'll talk to an author that they're so excited about everybody in the world reading their book to 2 months later saying to me, "Oh, Tom, I really don't care if my book sells a lot of copies or not." So I always ask them, what happened? And I know what happened is that their vision kind of went away in that 3 month period. Because there's three kinds of people when it comes to a vision. There are those who see the vision, they're so overwhelmed, it is such a huge thing that they freeze in their tracks and the vision dies with them. Number two is the person who sees the vision, they're overwhelmed, but they at least go to the degree that they will check out what they have to do to achieve their vision. But when they realize how much work, how much time, how much money, how much whatever, the vision dies with them. The third person is the person I love to work with, and that's the person who sees the vision, they embrace the vision, they want to accomplish the vision, they research what's going to be involved, they then just take one step after the other, and they never take their eye off the vision. Love to work with those people. Rarely ever see number one because that person never makes it as far to talk to somebody like me. Number two breaks my heart. So the next thing that they do is they look around and they find I want to be careful here, vanity press, and they invest thousands of dollars in the vanity press. And I'm working with a gentleman now who's a retired minister, has dementia. He is way beyond anybody I've ever worked with in writing a book, but he had a book published by a vanity press and nothing happened. And somehow God connected us on LinkedIn. And I'm helping him rearrange and rewrite his book. He's got a beautiful story, but it was published really not edited properly. His expectations were way up here. And I just admire him because he survived all that and hasn't given up. He's younger than I am by 5 years, uh, but he has 3 or 4 books in him. He told me yesterday, he said, Tom, I hope we can do this till the day I die. And so made me feel good. And so anyway, we're working on that. He is a man who understands the calling. He's a man that understands the message. And he's a man who has spent years in the ministry. He had 8 or 9 close brushes with death and has all those rich stories. And now he's doing blogs to Spanish speaking people. Because he told God one day, he said, Lord, you open the door and I'll go through it. And the Lord opened the door to a Spanish speaking church with some deaf people. So he had to learn Spanish. He had to learn sign language. But now he has this ministry around the world of working with these people. It's fantastic. Okay, now, there's nothing wrong with writing as a hobby. Absolutely nothing. But if you're writing as a hobby, please admit it to yourself and say, I'm writing as a hobby. I'm not doing this for a living. I'm not doing this as a ministry. I'm writing for myself. I enjoy it. And quit trying to build a website and all the things that authors do. Just be in the hobby and enjoy it. But if you made a commitment to write a book and you truly want to be an author doing it for a living, for a ministry, then own that too. Okay. And it starts with several things. Number one, in the city where you are, if you're doing business, you need to have a business license. Now, I had one and I decided I didn't need one because this is kind of silly in a way, but I do business with authors all around the world. I only have one person that I'm working with that lives in the state of Missouri, and nobody that lives in my hometown. Kind of weird. So I came to the conclusion I'm not really a Springfield businessman because the Springfield business community doesn't do anything to support me. Okay, that's not logical. That's on me, but that's how I feel. But really, if you are doing business in the community and you're doing book signings and you're going to my favorite book signing spot, which are garage sales, then you need to have a license because the person having the garage sale has to have a license. Now, this is the fun part of business. I've only been to 2 official book signings, and I really didn't enjoy that too much. But one day I got the idea that I was going to go to somebody's garage sale and give them a percentage of the books, the profit that I made, if they would let me set up a table. And I had a children's book and let me talk to the kids while mom's over there buying all these knickknacks that eventually are going to find their way to her garage in a garage sale sometime in the future. So the kids would come over and I'd talk to them and I showed them my book. And the next thing they were over at mom pulling on her purse and saying, Mom, I want to buy his book. I got tickled because mom would look down and she knew better than to say, I don't have the money for that because she's buying this stack of stuff that she has. So anyway, mom comes over and starts talking to me and get to know each other. And she decides that I'm a decent guy. And she looks at the book and she says, okay, the name of the book is The Legend of the Tickle Bugs. And so she says, how harmless can that be? I mean, how harmful could that be? And they buy the book. Those, I sell more books at those than I ever sold at any book sale in a bookstore. Not very glamorous, but you'd be surprised who you meet when you're talking to those people at the garage sale and those kids. There's teachers there. There's wives of business owners. There's, influential people. And I learned a long time ago that when I look at somebody, God taught me this back in 19 something. I went to a meeting in Chicago and I was extremely angry coming back home because I was an insurance agent. I had to drive 500 miles to, 500 miles back. It took me a week to get my office in order that I could even leave town because I had 1,200 clients and I was a busy guy. It was a mandatory meeting. I didn't have any choice. So it also took me a week out of business, no income. Took me a week away from my family, actually a week and a half by the time I drove. It took me a week to put out fires, answer phone calls, and open my mail. And basically, I lost about a month because of that meeting, and I didn't learn one new thing that I knew of. And God started speaking to me, and He said, Tom, you're looking at this wrong. He said, you need to look for the gold nuggets. And I said, gold nugget? What were you talking about? He says, when you go to a meeting, when you listen in on a video like today, when you, whatever you do, when you're reading a book, look for one thing that you can take away that's worthwhile. And I started doing that, and wow, did I see gold nuggets. One of them came on a Sunday morning when I heard my pastor say, anyone can cut open an apple and count the number of seeds, but only God can count the number of apples in a seed. Wow. So I went back to my office, took an apple, cut it open, took a seed out, taped it to my computer. And that was back in the day when the way I made a living was I'd pick up a phone book, pick out a name of a person I didn't know, call them on the phone, introduce myself, and in enough 2 or 3 minutes, told him enough that he would invite me into his home, sit down at his table with his wife, have them open up their checkbook and talk about their finances. That was hard work. And I would get discouraged. But after I heard that saying, and that was Robert Schuller that said it, he wasn't my pastor, but I thought my pastor thought that up. I thought it's pretty cool. He forgot to give credit to the guy that actually wrote it. But anyway, I put that on my computer, and before I would pick up that phone, I would look at that apple seed and I'd say, God, only you know what's in this phone call. And I'm going to do it. And my business just started going like that. And I found myself talking to other insurance agents and financial planners and sharing that story because you're ready to quit at least 5 times a week when you're doing that kind of work. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'd quit every one of those days. But is what God gave me to do. Okay, now what does all that have to do with being in business as an author? All those principles I just shared with you apply to you. When you go on social media, wow, I don't know how many authors I talk to that are petrified of talking to a stranger and starting to develop a relationship. And I ask them, why are you so afraid of that? It's called social media. Social media. Emphasis on social. You've been doing it all your life. When you went to a new church, when you went to a new school, when a new neighbor moved in, it was social media. it was face to face. Okay, so now let me ask, why are you on social media? Oh, because you want to meet people. Okay, why do you think they're on social media? Yes, that's right. They want to meet people. But if you're afraid to talk to each other, what's the point? Okay, you're in business. Get an apple seed, put it on your computer, and before you begin that conversation, say, God, I don't know what's in this conversation, but you do. I built a whole community of authors. Jen was involved. Gina Burgess was involved. They're the only two people that I have met in person that I'm doing business with on all of the internet. Now, for some reason, pastors were telling people, and not all pastors, but some pastors, because I've heard them tell people that you cannot make bona fide good relationships on the internet. Yes, you can. I have a gentleman in the United Kingdom. I helped him come out of a cult denomination. He was a Christian. He and I are like two peas in a pod. We are close friends. I may never see him in this life, but I know I'll have time to fellowship with him in heaven. That's the kind of relationship you can build. And this is what authors need to do in building their readership building. Okay. The thing is, I feel like I'm preaching, so forgive me, but I feel very strongly about these things. The thing is that the authors on an average sell less than 300 books. The reason that is, I'm convinced, is because everybody knows on the average 250 to 300 people. So they sell the book to mom, grandma, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, cousins, friends, people they work with, people they go to church with, to the point that people put their hand up and say, I do not want to hear about your book one more time. Read my lips, no book. That's not the way to sell books. So many authors join an author's group and then they try to sell their book to the other authors. Okay, if I'm in a group of 1,000 people and I want them to buy my book, how many books should I expect to buy? 1,000. Okay. How many people have the money to buy 1,000 books? Okay. You don't preach to the choir, but you cross promote. You talk to these authors and you find authors in your same genre. It doesn't have to be necessarily same genre. You're Christians. That's commonality enough for you to cross promote each other's books, share each other's blogs, share each other's interviews, share each other's book reviews, be a beta reader for each other. And every time you add somebody to your group, you're adding potentially another 300 people that may write your book. So if you have 1,000 people in your circle of influence, you potentially have a 300,000 readership. Does that make sense? It's business, but it's not business. I don't have to spend $250,000 or whatever it is to buy a McDonald's franchise to be in business. But if I did, McDonald's would be the place that I go, set aside the nutrition part of it. We'll ignore that part. But they know that everybody who drives down the interstate and sees those golden arches sticking up above the trees knows exactly what that is. Barbara and I know, clean restroom. Place that we can sit down, have a cup of coffee and relax. Clean in general. And we may break down and buy a fish sandwich or something. I do like the French fries. So anyway, that's who I would go with. But the investment is high. $250,000. It's probably more than that now, plus all the employees that I have to hire. And I have to buy from McDonald's and, but I get the benefit of the advertising. We don't have that as authors as such, but we could have a facsimile of it by cross promoting with other authors because we're not competitors. There's not a one of us that can write enough books to satisfy a hungry reading audience for our Max Lucado can't do it. John Grisham can't do it. Tom Clancy had ghostwriters. It can't be done. Okay. Questions? Comments? I've got more I can talk about, but I need to know if I'm hitting on any points here.
What kind of business license do authors need to be looking into?
I'm sorry?
What kind of business license do authors need to look into?
Just the cities usually have just a license that costs $20 or $25 a year that says that you have permission to do business in your community. Usually they're at the city hall. The second thing is that I should have put with that is if you sell one book and make a profit on it, you owe sales tax in your state.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another thing, These are saying things that are very simple to keep up with. It's not a headache. It just puts a face on Christianity that says, hey, I'm legal. I'm doing the right thing. They don't have the police department that comes out and arrests you or anything. But anyway,
Yeah. Do you have words of wisdom for keeping track of all that? The financial spreadsheet. What's a good software or something like that for us to keep track of finances?
Well, I'm going to tell you if you won't laugh at me, but I use PayPal for everything. And at the end of the year, I can print out in an Excel spreadsheet from PayPal, I can download all the transactions for the year. And then I just have to go in and separate them out as to what's expense, what's sales, what's profit, that kind of thing. And I give it to my CPA and he loves it because it's all there and it's easy for me. I keep no records during the year whatsoever.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, I'll use me as an example because perhaps there may be some other writers out there who are in a similar boat. I have different things that I would like to do. For instance, I would like to sell some artwork and I would like to sell some printable items as well as doing my writing and editing. And I am currently restructuring my business. So I currently have a name registered with my Secretary of State, which is what's required in my state, Vermont. And I am wanting to do more than one business because my current name really speaks about writing and editing, and that doesn't allow for art. So I need a different business name. So I have looked at creating an LLC as an umbrella and then doing business as names underneath that. Can you speak a little bit about that and that kind of structure and the benefits of that, how one can do that properly so that things are in order with taxes and all of the laws that are in place federally?
Okay. Number one, I want to disclaim here that I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I am an LLC. In fact, I'm two LLCs. I have one that's called Common Sense Marketing Strategies. Christian Authors Community is a division of that. Christian Book Club is a division of that. Tom Blubaugh Literary Consultant is not. That's my other LLC. An LLC is easy to set up. You can do it as a sole proprietor. The main purpose of the LLC is to protect you financially if the business were to be sued. It's the business of sued and not you personally. So you don't put your assets in the LLC, just business stuff. But an LLC as a sole proprietor, it's just simply a, what's the right, Form C, I think it is, of the federal income tax. You just put it in there. You can office out of your house. There's write-offs and things. The tax laws change, so you have to be up to date. Fortunately, I have a grandson who's a CPA. He does my stuff for me. I do pay him for that because I consider him to be a professional. I'm not looking for free help. But yes, but taxes are different because they're due in March instead of April. If your income is enough, you have to do quarterly estimates and that kind of thing. But an LLC is a great, great thing to use for exactly what you're talking about.
Kathy has a question for you. She says, I used to be in a group where the leader told new writers to concentrate on their writing and not worry about building their platform until later. What are your thoughts on building platform before or after the book?
I would be on the opposite side of him. Producing a book is like having a baby. Now, I've never had a baby, but I've got 6 kids and 14 grandkids, so I kind of have an idea of what's involved. But usually, when a woman finds out she's going to have a baby, she first of all tells the father. Then they start planning. Okay, got to have a nursery. Family needs to know. Got to have doctor visits. There's probably some vitamins I need to take. You know, they start preparing. They don't wait till the baby's born and then the baby comes home and then, oh, we forgot to build the nursery. Oh, wait a minute, we don't have any clothes for the baby. Oh, we don't, what kind of baby food? You know, it doesn't work that way. They do it at the same time. So I'm saying when an author, ideally the very first time that the author has the idea to write the book and makes the decision, start building a website, start building the email list, start letting people know that you're writing a book, get them involved. What do you think of this person as a protagonist? What do you think of this person as an antagonist? What do you think of this paragraph I wrote? Help me come up with the book cover. All those things that you do while you're writing your book prepares people for the day when you're going to put the book out. And that's what you want, because when you bring the baby home, all your neighbor and family and friends cannot wait to get that baby in their arms and love on it and hold it. And that's exactly what you want for your book. Now, that may seem like an over dramatization, but it's not. You need to do them together. If you wait until the book is done, then you've expended all that energy and your expectation's very high. But now you got a problem because there's going to be a long length of time for you to build your platform and find the buyers for your book. And that's when the discouragement comes in and all that kind of stuff. And you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot like that.
No, and using social media and reaching out to those people helps pull them in as well. And
yes.
I did that with something in my first book. or my second book, I needed a name, and I gave my first book as a gift for the name that they chose. So this, that's a way to start your readership right there, is to include them in the whole process.
That's right. But think like this, okay? Mentally, take a look around your neighborhood. There's a world in every house that you don't know anything about unless you know that family. If they're the average family, and I don't like the word average, but if they're average, there's 2.5 people, or I forget what the statistics are. But when I look over at that house, if there's 5 people in that house, they know 1,500 people that I don't know. And if I were an author today, and I'm serious when I say this, if I could go back to 1974, when I wrote my first book, I would go to every church with it and share it with the pastor and try to get him involved, his church, in the bus ministry, and hold a seminar there and include my book in back of the room sales. Okay. I could do the same thing as an author. I watched The Voice. I like to watch The Voice. And there was a young girl. I've tried to find out who she is, but I've been unsuccessful. But she was 13 years old, I think, when she decided that she wanted to sing for a career. So her dad went out and invested to have her make a CD of, I think, 10 songs. He printed 30,000 copies and said, when you have these sold, we'll be in business together. She went door to door and sold 30,000 copies of that CD. 13 years old. So I thought, wow, what if authors did that? What if they went to each door in their neighborhood and met the people and even gave a copy away, but asked them, could I fill out a questionnaire on your family? What are your favorite genres? Where do you go to church? Just stuff like that. Get to know them, develop a relationship, and then at the end of it, say, would you help me get this book, if you like it, into your circle of friends? Wonder what would happen. That's being in business. When you drive down the street and you see a construction vehicle on a lot, something's coming. Pretty soon there's a sign up, coming soon, whatever store it is. I saw a sign one time, for 10 years I saw that sign, coming soon. I wondered just what soon meant. And then one day the sign disappeared. So I guess they changed their mind. But anyway, you know what I'm trying to say? There's a lot of planning. Coming soon, a book that I'm writing. Okay. People go by there and they look, well, what's the business going to be? When's it going to be open? And then pretty soon it starts taking shape. Well, I think that's going to be a restaurant. No, it looks like a gift store. No. But you're invested in it. So when the day comes that it says, now open, what are you going to do? You're going to go in there and see what they built. Same kind of thing, same principle.
I would like to revisit for a moment your business names. You mentioned that you have 2 LLCs. And I'm wondering, how did you decide to make them 2 separate businesses instead of making your consulting business a division of your other one?
The consulting business came first. Then when I started the other one, I did not want to give up my name that I branded. So I kept it.
Okay.
It's on the internet. You can go tomblubaugh.net, and all you're going to see is a a page that's pointing everything to Christian authors community, because now that's what I want. I do not advertise common sense marketing strategies. That's a business tactic that people look at it and say, wow, that guy's really big. I'm in a 15 by 15 room here in my house in
Yeah.
Springfield, Missouri.
Yeah.
When I was doing antiques out of here, I had a lady one time send me an email and says, I'm coming to Missouri. Can I see your warehouse? I had to explain to her, ma'am, I don't have a warehouse. I'm a broker. These are all pictures of antiques that antique dealers have all over the country. You find something you like, you order it from me, I get it from them, they ship it to you, I get a percentage of that. She could not grasp that I did not have a 50,000 square foot warehouse with all these things in there. It's perception.
So would you recommend, or what would you recommend to somebody that's starting out brand new and they don't have a brand out yet or something, and they are able, like for myself, I'm in a position where I can remarket some things and what I've already done and restructure everything to start brand new. Would you recommend to someone like me that they put everything together under one umbrella or that they separate things out?
Keep in mind that if you don't have partners or anything, you're a sole proprietor. Okay. I'm trying to think of Coca-Cola. I think Coca-Cola has Dr. Pepper, Sprite. I don't know. Oh, the funny thing is, you can say, I do not like Whirlpool appliances. Now, Sears is out of business for the most part, but if you then went to Sears and bought a Kenmore, you bought a Whirlpool.
It was just branded different.
Very true.
Branded different, right? And so you say, I'm never going to buy a refrigerator again that has that kind of a motor in it because the motor didn't last, made by General Electric. But every refrigerator in the world probably has General Motors parts in it. People don't know that, okay? So the LLC, the umbrella, to me is nothing, okay? I mean, it's business, it's registered. Tom Blubaugh and authors community are the two things that I want them to see. When I bring them into authors community, then they get introduced to Christian Book Club and the other things that I'm doing. If Tom Blubaugh is all they know, that's fine. I have 40,000 connections on the internet. I'm getting tired already today thanking people for their birthday wishes because I'm being flooded in text, Facebook, email, LinkedIn, and my community. It makes you feel good. But wow, these people don't know me. I don't know them. You know, I know a small percentage of them, but it makes me feel good because they recognize my name. And I guess they want to be connected with me. That's what I'm after.
So essentially, you can
Go
make it easier on yourself to put everything under one umbrella and then just market each individually as you need to.
Yes, but I would sit down and talk to a CPA because how many of these things have your name tied to it?
Oh, I mean, I'm just talking about in general for anybody. If somebody has more than one avenue, for any of the writers that are here, I'm just thinking out loud that perhaps it might be easier if they put everything under one umbrella if they don't have something already established.
Well, keep in mind that the advantage of the LLC is to protect you. It's a limited liability corporation. So the whole thing is to limit the liability that you would face in a lawsuit to protect your assets. That's the whole reason behind that.
Yeah.
Author may not need that. I mean, even if they're an illustrator and an author and make widgets on the side, they may not want to incorporate that. It's strictly a liability thing.
I saw something on TV the other day where a finance guy was talking with a woman and she had her own business, but she did all her banking all in one spot. And I thought you should have your business and your personal separate. And this guy never told her she should separate them. What do you think?
Let me think through that a minute, because some things make sense and some things don't.
Yeah, but if you have one
No, I mean, not
thing,
what you
if they
said,
come
but
after you, they can take your business and your personal. If they're separate, they can't touch your personal.
well, again, if it's in a limited liability corporation, there's protection and stuff.
Okay.
I can't speak outside of that because I was a financial planner, but I'd be scared to death to tell people today because I haven't done that since 1995. Diversification is an important thing. Okay. One of the reasons why you'd want multiple banks is because the government only protects up to a certain amount of money in a bank. Okay. So if you have $1 billion, you want to spread it around, for protection. You don't want to have it all in cash in the bank. You want stocks, bonds, mutual fund, maybe real estate. That's diversification. I'm not doing a very good job of answering your question, Jan, because I would have to hear that conversation to know, what the main crux of it was.
Could I add something in here really quick, please?
Sure.
My son is right in the middle of doing an LLC right now. We were talking to our tax person last night, and she did tell us, if you decide to do the LLC instead of the doing business as a sole proprietor, you have to keep your personal banking separately from your LLC banking, because if you start commingling them, then the whole thing of keeping you safe financially and legally is out the window.
That's right.
That was her information last night.
That's right, with an LLC. That's right. Okay. Because I have my personal account in my bank here. I have PayPal I have a PayPal personal, I have a PayPal business. Yes. But if I'm a sole proprietor, then that's a whole different thing. But when you become a corporation, yes, it's different. Thanks for sharing that.
Rachel just asked, in case someone who was a writer and artist, are you saying they could function as a sole proprietor with a DBA rather than a sole proprietor under an LLC?
Okay. An LLC, you are a corporation, but it's treated as a sole proprietor as far as taxes and stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Now read that question to me again.
Someone who was a writer and artist, are you saying they could just function as a sole proprietor with a DBA rather than sole proprietor under an LLC?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Because either way, as a sole proprietor or as an LLC, single person, it's like a sole proprietor. What changes is when you have partners in an LLC, then that's a whole different deal. Okay.
Okay. How about we bring everybody in?
Why don't you bring back in, and we got about 5 minutes left, Tom. So I have one quick kind of overall question as writers. Should we have a business plan for our writing business, and then if so, what kind of components do we need to think about?
Okay, here's how I do a business plan for authors. I asked them to give me a one-page Word document and tell me, if money were no object, where do you want to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and go beyond that if you want to. Okay. The business plan comes in when I go through it with them and I say, okay, you want to do this at the end of 3 years. Okay, let's reverse engineer that and figure out what you have to do between now and then to accomplish that. That becomes your business plan.
Okay,
That make sense?
Mhm.
that does make sense. Thank you. Thank you. As we pull back people back in, does anybody have, we've got, like I said, a few minutes left. We have an additional question. Kathy, I sure appreciated you jumping in and adding that from your experience just last night. That was
Yeah, that was
super.
great.
Anybody want to add while we have Tom here for the last few minutes? A particular question.
Wow.
Wow.
You did good. You answered all the questions.
I have many, many notes.
Yeah. It's so-
Okay, my email address is tom@tomblubaugh.net. Feel free to send me an email if you got a question. But
I would like to add, my husband owns a business. He has an LLC and he pays quarterly taxes. And I did learn from our accountant that if I were to earn enough money to have to pay quarterly taxes, that they are paid together. I wouldn't pay because we file jointly. We pay the quarterly taxes together. So what he already pays would be bumped up or adjusted according to what I make. So I wouldn't have to file and have a separate account to pay my quarterlies and he pays his quarterlies. It's treated together because they're considered part of personal income tax.
okay, remember my disclaimer? I'm not a CPA. I'm not.
And neither am I, but that's what I'm relaying that I was told from my
Right.
accountant.
Right. Yeah, because I don't want to get too technical, but in a partnership, you have a Schedule K that the corporation gives you at the end of the year that shows what income you got out of the corporation. And you just attach that to your regular taxes.
Yeah, partnerships are treated differently, apparently.
Right.
Not the
Right.
same with partnerships, yeah.
Right. So anyway,
Well, this-
I'm going to tell you that I learned years and years ago that knowing where to find the answer is more valuable than knowing the answer. I use Google
That's true.
and YouTube like crazy. They're
Yep.
my online university. I don't care what I throw up there. There's 1,000 pages that give me an answer. You got to be smart enough to research whose answer you're going to choose
Yeah.
before you choose it. Okay. And so you can do searches and find out if there's good news or bad news about that person. But really, there's videos on this stuff. There's lots of information out there.
The Small
Tom,
Business
you're a
Association is great for resources as well.
good point. Good point. Tom, you're a wealth of information, a lot of wisdom. And we're so glad you celebrated your birthday with us today.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tom.
I was
Super.
looking for a cake, ladies, but
We've been busy listening. We haven't had time to bake. Dan, I'll have you
I put it in the mail for you,
there.
oh, thanks.
or email. Email.
Email, yes, okay.
Dan, I'll have you do a quick wrap up in just a minute. But I just wanted, while we're still in the recording, remind everybody we'll have on after parties. We could go off the recording, and we thank you if you listened today. And replay, we have a great deal of you. I know a lot of times go back and re-listen and watch the replay, but let you know, because you all have an assignment for next week's Writers Chat. We're going to have an open mic where we just kind of share something we're currently working on. Now, we don't want a 20-minute sermon about your novel. Except I'm going to pick on Melissa. I love hearing about her novel. I don't want 20 minutes of her novel because we wouldn't have time to get through everybody. But maybe just a quick synopsis. If this is something currently you're either thinking about, working on, and I'd like to make it writerly, have you add, and this is something I've learned about writing by working on this project. kind of focus it a little bit more. What's something you're currently learning and what you're working on? And we're kind of keeping it open discussion, kind of an open round table. I think it'll be really neat. It'll help us get to know each other a little bit better, be some networking. Plus, if you think about what you're currently learning too, that brings you very much present and what you need to maybe polish into the future. So I think it'll be beneficial on that. So Jan, anything you want to say in conclusion from today, which was wonderful info?
Just thank you very much, Tom, for giving us your time.
Pleasure.
If anybody has a further question, please email him. He is a great resource and a dear friend. So thank you so much. And it's been, if we'll try to have you back with another topic.
Hey, thank you.
We love hearing from you. So thank you, everybody. And see you next week
Bye-bye.
on Writers Chat.